I thought the two quarterbacks did a really good job of running the offense. I thought Tommy Stevens, even though he was working with the white team against the blue defense, really did some nice things, and then late in the game we were able to get him with the blue offense and did a nice job as well. Thought Trace looked poised, looked confident, looked under control. Had the one interception down in the red zone. One of the things that I tried to talk to him about is when you get in that fringe area, you got to be careful. Those defensive backs are going to sit on routes because you just run out of real estate. So we had a go route with a corner in front of it. And the DB kind of sat in between the two. And in those areas, you got to be aggressive with the ball down the field or take the check down when the DB sits in the gray area. But I thought he did some really nice things. Kevin Givens is another guy that really showed up, made a bunch of plays in the backfield. As you guys know, we were bragging about him all spring. A young man out of Altoona. Was a high school running back and is playing defensive tackle for us right now, and is very, very athletic. So we got a lot out of the spring. Very, very proud of the staff. Very, very proud of the team. Our culture, our family environment in the locker room is really good right now. Very, very proud of the guys. As hard as they've worked in the weight room, as hard as they've worked on the football field, they've done a great job of working in our in our locker room for the culture that we want as well. So very pleased. Like I told them, they have to take ownership of this team from this point moving forward throughout the summer. They will be as good as they decide to be. And I'm very, very pleased. I'm very, very pleased. Got a lot of work to do between now and camp, but very, very happy with spring ball and how it finished up. So open up to questions.
James, has Trace been that accurate during practice? And secondly, how much of the offense still has to be implemented going forward?
Well, I don't know what his completion percentage ended up being.
23 for 27.
23 for 27. I was a psychology major. What is that percentage-wise?
So was I. I was a communication major.
It's good. Yeah, exactly.
80.
Yeah. What is it, 80?
85.
Yeah, that's a little bit higher than what he had been throughout all of spring. He'd been in the 70s, him and Tommy, pretty much all spring. But yeah, I thought the receivers did a great job of coming back to the ball. I thought they did a great job of taking what the defense was giving. The thing I was probably most impressed with in standing out there on the field with him is just he looked very, very comfortable. He looked poised. He looked in control. And I thought Tommy did the same thing. One of the things that Tommy, the next step for him is he has such confidence in his athletic ability and his ability to break the pocket and make plays that he needs to be careful in certain situations. When you're backed up, it's not worth the risk of scrambling. When it's 2 minutes, it's not worth it. So there's times and place to use that athletic ability, and there's times where you just got to understand, throw the ball away and let's live to play another down. But I'm real pleased with those two guys. I even thought Billy Fessler went in there and ran the offense and dealt the ball. So really good. I think the offensive line has made tremendous strides. The competition with Noah Bay and Paris and Sterling and all the tackles that we got going right now is going to be interesting throughout the summer. I think the competition that we got at center with Gaia and Wendy, and then obviously defensive tackle is the area that we need to get resolved. I thought those guys did some great things today. We're going to have a number of guys coming in this recruiting class that are going to have to figure in. At linebacker, think about it, we didn't even have two of our better players, Brandon Bell and Naeem Wortman, who will be back. I actually think in some ways the fact that they were out and Manny Bowen and Cooper and those guys got so many reps this spring, in some ways it's a blessing in disguise. So Saquon Barkley didn't play today. We know what he's able to do as well. So I'm excited to see how these guys come back ready for camp.
James, was not playing Saquon something that just came about recently, or was that always your plan? And what did you see from Mark Allen and Andre Robinson today? Is that similar to the linebackers where you got to see what more of what they're able to do because he wasn't out there getting carries?
Yeah, Saquon went all spring. We just felt like we kind of know what we have with Saquon, and it's a fine line. Don't get me wrong. Saquon still has to get better. He's got a lot of areas for growth, but to go out and go live in the spring game, didn't think it made a whole lot of sense, especially when we got a pretty heated competition going on right now with Mark Allen and Andre. So allowing those guys to compete and play and get a bunch of reps and see how they're going to handle it. They both played with the blue and the white. That was by choice. We had some other guys, as you saw, running back from one side of the field to the other with Torrance Brown. And I was appreciative of the effort that those guys put and how they handled that. I told them at halftime, look, we're evaluating fundamentals and technique and scheme and alignment and assignment, obviously, but we're also evaluating mental and physical toughness right now. You're getting a bunch more reps than you typically would get in a game. We want to see how you're going to play when you get tired. So it's going to be a great evaluator for us.
James, can you talk about Trace's accuracy inside the pocket versus outside the pocket, and if you see a difference between the two?
I'm sorry, you say it again. Guys, if you guys could be a little quiet, please.
Trace made a lot of plays on the run today. Can you talk about his accuracy outside the pocket versus in the side of the pocket? If you see a difference there if there's anything he needs to work on either.
Yeah, Trace is probably the opposite of Tommy. He has the ability to make plays with his feet, but he is going to move and keep his eyes downfield the whole way. Tommy does as well, to be honest with you, but Tommy's still got some growth in terms of the time and place there. His accuracy, because it's such a big part of his game outside of the pocket, needs to be really, really strong, and it has been. It has been all spring. He showed that as well today. He just got a nice feel for things. Even to play down in the red zone, we ran it naked. There was a defender that could have stopped him from running the ball, and that defender was also in position that he didn't have a clear lane to throw the ball, and he just was nifty. He gave a nice little pump fake, which would allow him to either break contain and run, or get the ball around him now. So just little things like that. Him and Tommy have a real nice feel for being able to operate within the system of the offense.
James, you said earlier this spring, I think the first press conference of the spring, that ideally you'd like to name a starter so that person could have the whole offseason to kind of prepare with that mindset. Are you any closer to making a decision? And if not, what else do you need to see out of these guys to make that call?
No, I think it stays the same. Like that last Wednesday press conference after practice, I told you that probably will not happen. I just think Trace McSorley was the backup quarterback all last year and was preparing to go into game. Tommy was redshirting. I think Tommy's got a lot of ability and is going to be in this battle to the end. So I don't think it's fair to our football team, and I don't think it's fair to Tommy right now to name a starter when I think Tommy can really close the gap between now and spring. And that's also going to create a competitive edge in our locker room and keep Trace working, because he's got a lot of areas to improve as well. And we'll go into camp, we'll let those guys compete and see what happens. But right now I feel like we got two quarterbacks that we can win with.
James, you guys were down quite a few safeties as well. What did you like about the guys that you saw in there that you worked in, and specifically Cole Farmer? What kind of progress did he make this spring, and is he a guy who could help you in some of those sub packages?
Yeah, we're very, very pleased with Koa. He's an interesting guy. I told you guys before, he's a 220-pound guy who's dieting to be at 220 pounds. He was at 227 at one point. Runs 4.4, one of the faster guys on our team. Can play safety for us right now, really improved. I thought he worked really well with Tim Banks this spring, as well as some of our sub packages and going to the star, or allowing us to move Marcus to the field backer in some of those sub situations. So I thought he did a great job. I think Nick Scott, we tried him at corner to see if he could do it, but he's a little bit more natural at safety. I thought Malik may be one of the most improved guys on our team right now, not just physically, but also from a leadership perspective and mentally as well. So, I think safety is one of our deeper positions, especially when we get some guys back that had some nicks and bruises.
James, do you know any more about the defensive line than you did 3-4 weeks ago, and how do you expect that to shake out? You had such impact out of them last year.
Yeah, very much so.
And are you already adjusting ahead of time to maybe not having that kind of, that was historical impact?
Yeah, obviously I was actually just coming in here, and Zettel was there, and he said, you guys look good today. I said, we look good today. You're still part of the family. I wish you were here another year, but I think we found out some things. We're pleased with Curtis Cothran. You take a guy like that, you move him inside as long as he is. You're not sure if it's going to translate. At 270 pounds, he's a powerful guy. He was able to hold his own in there, and he'll probably be 285 by the time camp comes. Kevin Givens, we thought he could do it, but you never know. He actually, was probably one of the big surprises and one of the stars of spring. did it in the weight room, but you also have guys that are great in the weight room, and it doesn't always translate to the field. He was able to translate. I thought he made a bunch of plays today in the backfield. Antoine Whitesall has been a guy who's played. He needs to take that next step. And then obviously we got a number of other guys, Robert Windsor, Parker didn't go much this spring, but he'll be back. And then we got some guys coming in as well. Yeah, I was just talking about the inside guys. The DN we feel really good about. I think, obviously Carl Nassib is a big loss for us, but I think the depth and the number of guys that have played a bunch of ball, the Schwans, the Sickles, the Torrance Browns, we got a number of guys at defensive end that we feel good about. I actually think defensive end and safety are probably two strongest positions on our team.
Time for two more.
The effectiveness of the no huddle, and the dynamic, the tempo, pace, all of those things. What are the benefits that you see the most out of that?
I think it's a combination of a number of things. We went from having lack of numbers and lack of depth and lack of experience on the offensive line from 9 scholarship players to now 17 scholarship players on the O-line. We went from being young at wide out to veteran at wide out. I think we got one of the better backfields right now in the combination of guys that we have plus guys that are coming in. Tight end, you see Mike Jasicki really playing with some confidence right now, and some of the other guys as well. And then, 2 mobile quarterbacks. You bring Joe Moorhead in. He's got a system that I believe in and I think makes sense for our team right now. It's a combination of what Joe is doing, and I also think it's a combination of what we're returning now. It's a beautiful marriage at the right time. So I'm very, very pleased with what we were able to get done. I think someone asked me, and I probably didn't completely answer the question. 95% of the offense is in. There's things that we're going to go back and study. We're going to go back and study the tape and make cut-ups and say, what is going to be our bread and butter? What is going to be our identity? Who are we going to be moving forward? What areas do we need to improve on? That's going to be very, very important for us. But I thought the tempo was good. Just Brendan's going to have to do a great job of making sure in the walkthroughs that he is getting two-back power. He's getting two-back counter, so that you're not in a situation when you play one of those teams that you're not used to someone lining up, getting in 22 personnel, 2 tight ends, 2 backs, and trying to maul you with a physical offensive line. You got to do both. And that's one of the things when you make the switch to this type of offense, you got to make sure that your defense is prepared to be able to stop that type of offense moving forward.
Saying that Tommy Stevens has a little bit more time to close the gap between Trace. What do you think are some of the things he needs to work on to catch up? And did you see that in today's game, especially with those 10 minutes he had with the blue team?
Yeah, I think I mentioned to you guys in previous press conferences, he's got a natural feel, almost like a point guard, to find open guys. He's not always necessarily going through the progression the way he should be or reading the side of the field he should be. That's just experience. That's just recognition of defenses. And that's where I think he'll make the biggest improvement. But he's one of these guys, there may be times where he goes to the wrong side of the field in his progression, but he still throws completions. And how much better is he going to be when mentally he's on pace with where he is physically as well? So those are the areas. Just getting a little bit more confident and decisive with his decision making.